This is radioudaan. I'm your RJ Babuji Janakarajan. You are listening to the Great Indian Monologue latest episode. The power of one. What could one individual do to make life better in earth? A farmer in a not so popular village in a Japanese state shook the conscience of the entire nation when word spread that his farm yields, the produce from his farm, were consistently beating the best yields of the scientifically and chemically farmed fields in Japan. This was a post-World War II Japan, when the chemical inputs like the modern fertilizers, the chemically synthesized fertilizers and pesticides, they found their way into the fields of modern world, particularly Japan. What stunned the people most was the information that he neither used fertilizers nor machines. How could this be when the whole world is going gaga about using modern fertilizers and chemicals and machines? How can somebody do farming without any of these and still produce quantities which consistently beat all the modern farmed fields? So people from all walks of life, particularly skeptical scientific community, started forming a beeline to his farm to try and understand the man and his concepts. They all went back more than convinced that his technique was far superior than all that science could offer. What was that he did so extraordinarily well that stumped even the most sophisticated agro-scientists world over? He didn't do anything extraordinary. In fact, he didn't do anything at all. How come somebody does farming without doing anything? That is the crux I'm going to introduce you. A trained plant scientist, this farmer had an epiphany one night that we the world didn't know nothing, that we would never be able to understand nature while we are living from within it. Complicated stuff, right? Let me simplify it. He started questioning the conventional wisdom and practices and started wondering, what if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? A typical conventional farmer, he or she would have been schooled for the entire life by the people around, their ancestors, their experienced farmers in the field, in the village, who would have, taught them some kind of A to Z steps to do in farming. And this man, he started wondering, what if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? So what he did, he stopped tilling the field, he stopped fertilizing, and he stopped de-weeding. Absolutely crazy. How could we ever farm without doing these? These are the essential things if you really want to produce anything from your farm, right? So can any sane farmer, commit more blunders than this ever? But the results were stunning and was there for all to see. Masanobu Fukoka was his name. He practiced something called do-nothing farming for 50 years, working one with nature, observing and learning all the time. His vision was simple. The only purpose of human beings is to be one with nature, and as a natural consequence, be happy like children. He lived for 95 years, 30 of which he spent in near isolation as he withdrew from the scientific world and spent his life just observing nature. His diet was, very simple: rice, soup, veggies and fruits, all from his own farm. He lived healthy right through on those simple pleasures, in spite of what the scientific world, funded by mega businesses, made us believe till today about the need for good, balanced, nutritious, fortified food. My foot, that's what he seemed to have said. He is hailed as the father of natural farming, and this episode is all about him and some of his most profound quotes. This great man of a farmer, he visited India in the 1980s and likened his philosophy with that of another great soul our land produced, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Non-violence, self-sustainable farming. Masanobu Fukoka passed away in 2008 after making waves about natural farming and bringing natural farming back into the discussion of everybody, farming days and nights. Here are some of his profound quotes. The ultimate goal of farming is not the growing of crops but the cultivation and perfection of human beings. Modern research divides nature into tiny pieces and conducts tests that conform neither with natural law nor with practice experience. The results are arranged for the convenience of research, not according to the needs of the farmer. So instead of focusing on what the farmer really needs, the tests and the results were focusing on the convenience of the research, what the research can prove. Food and medicine are not two different things. They are the front and back of the body. This goes back to the old saying that we Indians are very accustomed to, that food is medicine and medicine is food. Speaking biologically, fruit in a slightly shriveled state is holding its respiration and energy consumption down to the lowest possible level. It is like a person in meditation. His metabolism, respiration and calorie consumption reach an extremely low level. Even if he fasts, the energy within the body will be conserved. In the same way, Fukoka says, when mandarin oranges grow wrinkled, when fruits shrivel, when vegetables wilt, they are in a state that will preserve their food value for the longest possible time. Hey, again, how could this be? We all got used to, buying vegetables which are pristine, which look so good, which feel so good. But here is a man who talks about shriveled vegetables having the best nutritive value for a very valid reason. Stunning, right? People think they understand things because they become familiar with them. This is only superficial knowledge. It is knowledge of the astronomer who knows the name of the stars, the botanist who knows the classification of leaves and flowers, the artist who knows the aesthetics of green and red. This is not to know nature itself, the earth, sky, green and red. Astronomer, botanists and artists have done no more than grasp impressions and interpret them, each within the walls of his own mind. The more involved they become with the activity of the intellect, the more they set themselves apart and the more difficult it becomes to live naturally. So this is a classic mind versus heart. The more you apply your mind in living, you don't live, you simply stop living and start analyzing. So the more you live with your heart, the more you live naturally. This is what his quote says. Yet another quote is this: just playing or doing nothing at all, children are happy. A discriminating adult, on the other hand, decides what will make him happy, and when these conditions are met, he feels satisfied. Yet another gem of a quote: originally, human beings had no purpose. Now, dreaming up some purpose or other, they struggle away trying to find the meaning of life. It is an one-man wrestling match. There is no purpose one has to think about or go out in search of. You would do well to ask the children whether or not a life without purpose is meaningful. One-man wrestling match, one is wrestling with oneself. Wow. From the time they enter nursery school, people's sorrow begins, is what he says. The human being was a happy creature, but he created a hard world and now struggling, trying to break out of it. In nature, there is a life and death, and nature is joyful. In human society, there is life and death, and people live in sorrow. What classic contradiction! And the most profound of his quotes is this. I saved it for the last, but it's the best. If we throw Mother Nature out of the window, she comes back through the door with a pitchfork in her hands. What does it mean? Let me elaborate on it, throwing Mother Nature out of the window, and how she comes back with a tool, with a weapon in her hand through the main doors, crashing in to harm us, to teach us a lesson. If you throw Mother Nature out of the window, she comes back in the door with a pitchfork. Only the spikes of that pitchfork manifest into fires, floods, lightning strikes from time to time. Have you heard about forest fires? Australian bushfires, which ravaged close to 1 billion creatures in 2019-2020, just before the pandemic struck. Then floods, the pitchfork has the fork ends, right? And these are the manifestation of fires, floods, lightning strikes from time to time. Indonesian floods, a lot of people died and a lot of people displaced. Volcano eruption in Philippines, a lot of villages had to vacate their villages, leaving all their hard-earned belongings and stay away from the farmlands. Then earthquake in many countries, locust swarm in many countries. Even India actually suffered a great loss in the last couple of years when locusts swam into the lands of Punjab and the middle part of India and ate everything which was in the way. Right? Locust swarm is what it is called. Then the Californian forest fires. Every year, a forest which is much bigger than a state of Punjab or a state of Uttar Pradesh for that matter keeps burning of all the places in the United States of America. Forest fire. Then the cyclones in Asia, which occurs on a clockwork precision every year. The floods in India, Assam, River Koshi. Most recently, 11,000 plus lightning strikes in a span of just 72 hours in California. That is 3 days, ladies and gentlemen. Within 3 days, 11,000 plus lightning strikes were recorded in the state of California in the United States of America. I believe these are the snippets in just the trailer to the main picture which is going to come. What about coronavirus then, you may ask? Hey, that is only a teaser. Meanwhile, we the living are busy as ever gobbling up glaciers to Amazon forests, notwithstanding the first ever time appearance of algae in Antarctic waters last year. Algae is normally found in the waters in warmer climate. Antarctic is one of the coldest places on Earth. It's on the southern pole. There, for the first ever time, algae have appeared in the melting waters of Antarctica. In finance, around 2007-2008, the most popular term used by trickster advisors, financial advisors who advise their clients how to manage the client's wealth. The most popular term they used was IBG, YBG, which means I will be gone and you will be gone by the time the shit hits the fan. So this is like we do all nonsense to the people who trust us, and by the time the results hit them, we would have moved on. So we would not be responsible. This is the kind of attitude, a much larger attitude, which we are witnessing on a pandemic scale implementation by governments everywhere. See, there are people who still define green revolution as need of the hour. Only we keep inventing more and more needs for that hour. Remember, the pitchfork of nature, it's growing stronger and stronger, and more pain is inflicted on earth on a day-by-day basis. And this is not going to stop until and otherwise we decide to do something to undo all the bad things we did to nature in the last 50-60 years in the name of green revolution. Listeners, this is Radio Udaan. I'm your RJ Babuji Janakarajan. You have just listened to another episode of the Great Indian Monologue. In the coming ones, I will elaborate a bit more on Green Revolution, and it would be very, very relevant to the rice bowl of India, which is Punjab, which has become the cancer capital. Till I talk to you again on yet another episode, wish you all a pleasant time. Stay blessed, and you will hear from me soon with a lot more interesting stuff about Green Revolution. Bye. Good day, listeners. Welcome to Radio Udaan. This is Babuji Janakarajan, your host for the Great Indian Monologue series. Monologue means a long speech by one person, the classic textbook definition. But a heck of an interesting speech every single time on so many different topics you can imagine. In a series of talks, I will share my thoughts on subjects like civic sense, current happenings, commerce, technology, business, science, health, living, and so on.